We talked in the earlier video about the labor shortage slamming U.S. agriculture. Neither American workers nor undocumented immigrant workers serve as a stable workforce for U.S. farms. If only there was a third group of workers, foreign-born workers that temporarily visited the U.S., worked and earned money on American fields, and then returned to their native countries when the season was done. That would solve the labor shortage in American agriculture and get American produce harvested. Oh wait, those workers exist. They are participants in the H-2A visa and guest worker program, and the main focus of our video. The H-2A visa program allows workers from other nations to gain entry into the United States to work temporary or seasonal agricultural work. The program works like this. An American farmer finds himself in need of workers, and so he looks into getting temporary workers from other countries through the H-2A guest worker program. In order to hire these out-of-country workers, our farmer must have a temporary labor certification from the Department of Labor. In order to obtain that certification, growers have to prove that 1. The job they are recruiting workers for is seasonal in nature. 2. That there are not enough U.S. workers who are able, willing, and qualified to meet the farmer's employment needs. 3. That the farmer's employment of foreign workers will not have negative effects on the wages and working conditions of U.S. workers in similar jobs. The H-2A visa and guest worker program also contains a list of protections to make sure farmers are honest in making these assertions. It requires that the farmers use the interstate employment system and other recruiting services to try and recruit U.S. workers so that the farmers do not employ foreign workers over willing Americans. There is also the 50% rule within the guest worker program, which requires that farmers employing H-2A workers hire all qualified U.S. applicants to work for them before the first half of the harvesting season has ended, a direct advantage to U.S. workers seeking employment as farm workers. If growers prove these 3 points above to the satisfaction of the Department of Labor, they are issued their temporary labor certification. They can then submit this certification along with a petition for foreign non-immigrant workers to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or the USCIS. Once the USCIS has approved both these documents, workers from other countries can begin their process to finding a job in the United States. Foreign workers who hope to get jobs in the U.S. must apply for an H-2A visa with the Department of State at a U.S. embassy or consulate within their proximity. With their visas, foreign workers have the proper documentation to approach U.S. Customs and Border Protection at any U.S. port of entry and then can enter the country and begin work. However, regulations on the H-2A program don't stop once foreign workers have entered the country. There are a number of protections set in place to make sure that these guest workers who have come to work in an unknown land with unfamiliar laws are not taken advantage of. Some of the protections in place include that the migrant workers must be paid at least the state or federal minimum wage, the 3/4 minimum work guarantee, which states that employers must give work to the foreign workers they have recruited for at least 3/4 of the hours promised, and if the employer does not, they will pay the difference. If a migrant completes half of a season of work, their employer must reimburse the migrant for the transportation costs it took to get to their farm. If a migrant completes the entire season of work for a farmer, the farmer must reimburse the worker both for their transportation costs to and from their recruited place of work. Farmers employing H-2A workers also have to provide free housing, which meets federal and state safety requirements for their guest workers. As long as farm owners follow all these regulations and treat their workers well, the H-2A visa system and guest worker program works very well. U.S. farmers get a seasonal solution to their low employment problem, and people from other countries get the opportunity to make some good money working in the U.S. to then bring home to their families at the end of the season. But the H-2A guest worker program rarely works so ideally. Click and watch the next video to hear about problems with the H-2A visa and guest worker program and find out what we think the future of the program looks like.